Pohatsky, Peiss, and Menser to speak on the bill package as well. Will Representative Pohatsky and Senator Irwin please come testify to your bills?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee for having this hearing on this important issue. We know that Madam Chair and members of the committee for having this hearing on this and are in our water, they're in our Great Lakes, they're in our drinking water in Michigan, they're in our bodies, they're inside every one of your brains, they're even in our beer. And so that's why we've put together a package of legislation so that Michigan can step up and be a leader on trying to prevent microplastic pollution in our Great Lakes. Now, just a few more statistics on this. I want to let you all know, and I want the public in Michigan to know, that microplastics have been found in all 5 of the Great Lakes. Currently, according to the best estimates we have, about 22 million pounds of plastic pollution is put into the Great Lakes environment every year, and that's why we're finding it in our drinking water, we're finding it in our bodies, and we're finding it even, as I mentioned, in our beer. Now, we know that these plastic elements of pollution, these microplastics, can cause problems like dementia, can cause inflammation in the body, can lead to ailments like cancer, can physically obstruct processes in our bodies, and that these microplastics get into our environment through bioaccumulation. And even, not only do we find these microplastics in the digestive tract of our fish and inside of our bodies, but as I mentioned, these microplastics can translocate into other tissues in our bodies. As I mentioned, they're in our brain. And when we look at our fish, it's not just in the gut of the fish, but we're also seeing it into the edible muscle of our fish. And so in a state where we care about drinking water, we are the Great Lakes state, I think it's most important that we step up, and these bills represent a first step to addressing microplastic pollution in our state. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you, Chairwoman Schenck, for the opportunity to just talk a little bit about these important bills, which we have introduced in the House as well. The bill that Senator Irwin outlined, he did a fantastic job about talking about why this is so important and the acute need for addressing it. The bill just really takes a common sense approach to dealing with the most common and frankly avoidable places that we find these products that we find these microplastics coming from. So dealing with cleaning products, personal care products, things like that, and also gives a reasonable timeline to begin phasing these out and setting up the enforcement mechanisms around that. So thank you.
Thank you. Members, do you have any questions? Senator Cherry.
Thank you both for testimony in your bill. So talking about finding microplastics in different sources, water, et cetera, is the plastic that is being found, when we talk about it being microplastic, is it because it was microplastic when it went into the water, or is it a larger plastic source that then became microplastic over time?
We have some, environmental experts that can talk a little bit more about that. But what I will say is, even if we're looking at degradation, there are programs that we've put in place to try and curtail some of that. Obviously, varying levels of success, not really, debating that. But there have been things that we have done to try and address that. There are initiatives in place. We're replacing products. We're eliminating some single-use plastics, things like that. So I think that it's time to take the next step to eliminate the microplastics that are already micro, that are in some of these products where they frankly don't need to be, but obviously interested in your perspective.
Yeah, and just to build on the representative's answer, I think that the bills that the representative and I have introduced here are really focused on plastics that are already sort of micro in products. So we're talking about, as the representative mentioned, personal care products, things like toothpaste and shampoos and things like that. But when you look at the rest of the package, you'll see that there's an effort to get our arms around this problem because we're getting microplastics and nanoplastics from a variety of sources. It's from these personal care products that our legislation is meant to address, but it's also from larger pieces of plastic that then degrade in the environment. If you want to go on the same journey of discovery I did, there's also other things that are getting into our environment. I didn't know about nurdles until I started working on this legislation, so you can look that word up. And so it's coming into our environment from a lot of different angles. One of the other areas that we get a lot of it from is from our tires. Our tires lose small bits of plastic, and then those get washed into storm drains and right into our lakes and rivers. And so we need to really get our arms around this from a multifaceted perspective, and our bills are really getting at some of those personal care products and other products that have microplastics built into them.
It's also an immensely achievable goal, right? There are a lot of products that have voluntarily started removing microplastics, like you can get face scrubs that have crushed up avocado pits instead of, the microplastics that used to be there. So water sources, but this is also an immensely achievable strategy for the already microplastics.
Any other questions? Senator Hoytinga.
Thank you. I know at the federal level, they've implemented some laws and restrictions. Can you explain how these are any different than what the federal level has implemented?
I mean, my primary goal is when we look at, with understanding that, yes, there are already some federal regulations there, trying to have things, safeguards at the state level, particularly because we are not shackled to federal standards and regulations anymore, but also when we look at the evolving landscape of environmental regulations at the federal level, I think regardless of any differences or lack thereof that might exist now, I think it's important to have safeguards at the state level to make sure that regardless of what happens at the federal level, we are doing everything that we can, especially because we are stewards of the Great Lakes where there's an inordinate amount of this waste there.
I would just add to what the representative said that, here in Michigan, we have a special responsibility and a special opportunity that the Great Lakes provide us. And when I first started learning about plastics in the ocean and I started seeing some of the videos and other things that were kind of flashy, getting worldwide attention about that problem, I was wondering to myself, like, is this a problem here in Michigan? And it turns out, from what I've learned looking into it, it's actually arguably a bigger problem in the Great Lakes. And so if it's a bigger problem here, I think we need to engage in a bigger solution maybe than is being focused on at the federal level. And so I think that we should have these kinds of rules here in Michigan for those reasons, in addition to, the fact that the federal government doesn't always have our back when it comes to protecting our water.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much. Next, we'll hear from Representative Pais and Senator Polhinky.
Thank you, Chairwoman Schenk, members of the committee, for the opportunity to testify on my bill, Senate Bill 504. This legislation addresses a pressing threat to Michigan's water, microplastics. Emerging scientific evidence shows that tiny plastic particles are finding their way into our Great Lakes, our rivers, and even our drinking water systems. The lack of consistent testing standards and statewide data make it difficult to make informed decisions about how best to protect our communities. Senate Bill 504 would change that. It creates a statewide program requiring the Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy, EGLE, to test quarterly for microplastics from July 2027 through July 2030. The testing will include a variety of water sources and ensures that a wide variety of communities are represented in the data. Beyond the collection of data, Senate Bill 504 ensures accountability and transparency. By July 2031, EGLE will publish and submit a comprehensive report to the legislature dealing where microplastics are found, in what amounts, and what we know about their risks. EGLE will also provide recommendations and strategies for future monitoring and mitigation. This is a crucial and essential step toward protecting Michigan's public health and preserving the integrity of Michigan's drinking water. Michigan is home to 20% of the world's fresh water. We have a moral and economic responsibility to protect that water for the millions of people who depend on it. So I urge my colleagues to support this legislation.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I'm State Representative Veronica Pais. My district includes part of the east side of Detroit, all of the Grosse Pointes, and Harper Woods. I have about 7 miles of a shoreline in my district, and I can tell you that my constituents are very, very interested in environmental issues and in our water issues, not just for recreational purposes, also for drinking purposes. So as you've heard from Senator Irwin and Senator Polehanki, microplastics are really dangerous contaminants in our drinking water right now, and they'll only get worse in the future. So I also support Senate Bill 504, and like the Senator said, it would have a monitoring program through EGLE, which would be making a decisive step in confronting one of the most pressing public health challenges we have at the moment. This program will give us the information we need to assess the risks, protect public health, and keep Michigan's drinking water safe for generations to come. Madam Chair, in these divisive times, I believe it's really critical that we all come together on this issue. We all know that the longer we wait on this, the longer it will take to have any kind of programs come in. I also want to say that I'm a member of the Great Lakes Legislative Caucus, as is Senator Schenck and as is Senator Polehanki. One of the things I learned recently through the caucus is that we can help filter out some of our microplastics in our drinking water through our lead filters. So you can just buy it like Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever. So I think that that even exists is telling you right there that there's a problem and that we're trying to address it locally, and that this would really help us. Senate Bill 504 would really locally, and that this would really help us. Senate Bill 504 would really help us take these steps. I appreciate your attention and your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Senator Hotinga.
Thank you, and none of us want to be drinking bad water like that, so thank you. Just a couple of things. 504 requires quarterly testing of farms. How do we determine which farms? Is this every farm in the state of Michigan?
It's not just farms, it's a variety of sources from all different communities. So what was your question?
So are we testing every farm?
I don't think so,
Quarterly?
no, it's a sampling, and I think Eagle would, truthfully, I don't quite know how the samples would be derived, but I think Eagle would probably have that oversight over that, picking them. But it wouldn't be every farm, no.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Rep. Pais, do you know if Representative Menser, thank you.
Thank you.
Rep. Pais, do you know if, thank you.
Thank you.
Rep. Pais, do you know if Representative Menser was going to come back in? Okay. We were going to testify together, but since she's not here, I will just testify from here in the interest of time. It will also identify proposed solutions to address the impact of microplastic materials. Implementation of the plan would happen by July 1, 2028. We know that compared to our oceans, the Great Lakes actually have very high concentrations of microplastics, higher than the oceans. I'm not trying to say that the oceans don't have a high level. I'm saying that the Great Lakes have a higher concentration of microplastics. We know that microplastic pollution is showing up in many alarming locations, including the fish in our Great Lakes. I've heard directly from researchers that microplastics are found at every depth of Lake Superior, as well as the other lakes, and in all of our bodies. Plastics are not inert, and scientists know that they can cause cancer and affect our hormones. By creating a research and monitoring plan, Michigan can effectively respond to this pollutant and will be able to protect our most valuable natural resources and our people. Thank you, and I am also happy to answer questions. Do we have any questions? Okay, thank you. We have, oh, sorry.
So if these were found at a facility or an organization or a farm, who is taking the enforcement action? And what does that enforcement action look like?
Well, I think that is where we have the plan, right? So we're looking at developing a plan to address, to assess the problem, and then developing a plan to assess the problem, or, to solve the problem. And so those questions aren't answered at this point. And I guess I would say from my perspective that this isn't about harming anybody who has, or enforcing against anyone who has suffered the being polluted by plastic, anybody who has, or enforcing against anyone who has the plastics, because we know it's everywhere. And so it's not about that, so that we're not going forward with more water contaminated by plastics, or water contaminated by more plastics, or our bodies carrying a higher burden. So there would be opportunity for input going forward.
Appreciate that, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, then we are going to be moving on. We have a lot of testifiers, and it is a complex topic, and at the same time, I will ask people to try to be as succinct as possible, because again, we do have a lot of testifiers, and we also have some time constraints. So if you could keep it to 3 minutes or less, that would be great, and if you can keep it a little shorter, that would be even greater. So I am going to call first Dr. Donna Cashin, President of the International Association for Great Lakes Research, who will be on Zoom.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
All right. So I'm wearing 3 hats today. One as a science researcher myself doing research on microplastics. 2 as the president of the International Association on Great Lakes Research, but also as a U.S. representative of the Great Lakes Science Advisory Board from the International Joint Commission, which is a joint agreement between the U.S. and Canada. I've worked on water quality issues primarily in the Great Lakes for nearly 30 years. My work has included heavy metals, pesticides, algae toxins, and endocrine disruptors, and now most recently microplastics. The overall summary has been amazing so far, and it's correct. These are found in every source on Earth, from human placenta to the deepest ocean trench. Been amazing so far. Every source trenches, from beer, bottled water in the Great Lakes, to the fish of our Great Lakes. The recent evidence them, on average, we are ingesting the equivalent of about a credit card's worth every week. Yet we still don't know a lot about how they're moving into our organs and what the impacts are, but the data that's coming out has been pretty disturbing, and it seems to be coming out weekly. Microplastics were really first reported in aquatic environments about 40 years ago, but most of that research, as someone else has indicated, is actually from marine systems. More recently, there has been growing research coming out of our freshwater systems in the Great Lakes, and there has been limited monitoring, standardization, and coordination. With that, we still are learning a lot of the impacts and sources where they are. One of these bills will dramatically help us understand the sources, in my opinion, not necessarily to punish, but to help mitigate and resolve some of the problems that are affecting the environment and human health. In the aquatic system, the plastics, not only the things we mentioned, but they're not like a lot of other particles in the water. They become coated with algae. Like if you set anything in the water, it gets coated with algae and bacteria, which makes these little particles look like food. So at the base of the food chain, animals will eat them, ingest them, and then they move up through the food chain so they can end up in pretty high concentrations in our fish. The IJC, International Joint Commission, we recently identified microplastics as a major concern for the Great Lakes and just released a comprehensive report on the Great Lakes, on microplastics in the Great Lakes and the need for some of the things identified in this bill, including monitoring. My research groups and others have documented their impacts using advanced imaging. We've identified microplastics in the organs of almost all aquatic animals we've looked at, seeing them in the intestine, causing intestinal blockages, abrasions, and other physical damage. Even more concerning, which hasn't been mentioned, is plastics act like little carbon particles, and they will attach other contaminants like metals, PCB, intestinal blockages, abrasions, and other physical damage. Even more concerning, which hasn't been mentioned, is plastics act like little carbon, absolutely unchecked, whether through industrial products, personal care products, or household items like cleaning supplies. And once released, they do not disappear, they accumulate. We have measured them in the Great Lakes, and my team has gone out in stormwater drains and wastewater outflow, so they're coming in from overland flows and the piping. The numbers are staggering, and without action, all that happens is these discharges released, they do not disappear, they accumulate.
I am sorry, I am going to not pronounce your name right. Tizet Club, who will be testifying on Zoom. Can you tell me how to say your name properly, please?
Yes, it's Tizides.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll just jump right into it in the effort of time, but my name is Hannah Tizides, and I'm the founder of the Cleanup Club, a nonprofit dedicated to protecting our communities in Great Lakes from plastic pollution. In my adult years, I've never visited a Great Lakes beach without finding plastic. Before I started my nonprofit, I would go on weekly solo cleanups, and that solving it really means going upstream and doing work upstream to solve it. So many people think that plastic pollution is just an ocean problem like we've talked about here today, but in our Great Lakes, we know that more than 22 million pounds are impacting our Great Lakes every year. That means our drinking water, the beaches we love, and the wildlife that calls them home. Over the past couple of years, with the help of hundreds of volunteers, the Cleanup Club has removed over 100,000 bags every year. That means our drinking water. Past couple of years, with the help of hundreds of volunteers, the Cleanup Club has removed over 100,000. Every single one, or more than that. The most common items that we find are plastic fragments, and a lot of them are microplastics. First-time volunteers are often shocked at just how many microplastics they find, and it's rare to leave one of our cleanups without finding hundreds, honestly, if not thousands, of colorful little plastic bits. And all of them are technically microplastics that we're counting that are under that 5 millimeter mark. So these fragments are broken down from larger items by wind, the waves, and sun rays, and they pose a serious threat to our drinking water, our health, and our ecosystems. And even after hours of cleanup, when the beach looks spotless, we know that countless microplastics are left behind. And there's too small to collect by hand or even see with the human eye. And that's why prevention and policies like these ones that we're talking about here today, not just the cleanup element, are incredibly important. Research shows that most plastic doesn't come from the beachgoers. It actually starts in our cities, it goes down our storm drains, and then ends up on our beaches and our waterways. So if we hope to see a day where plastic is no longer threatening our freshwater and our health, then solutions have to begin upstream before plastic even gets the chance to reach our shorelines. Isn't a new problem, but it's one I really am passionate about and hope that we can address now rather than later for future generations to come and the health of our Great Lakes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on these bills today. My name is Elin Betanzo, and I'm the president and founder of Safe Water Engineering based in Detroit, Michigan. I have 25 years of experience in drinking water policy, engineering, and public health, including work at the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency and with communities across Michigan. All three of these bills are critical for protecting both the Great Lakes and our drinking water. First, I'll talk about Senate Bill 503, House Bill 4766, the microbead ban. Michigan's drinking water treatment plants are not designed to remove microbeads, and the vast majority of our treatment plants cannot treat for them. Once microbeads are added to commercial products, they wash down our drains and end up in our rivers, lakes, and ultimately in our drinking water. So Senate Bill 503, House Bill 4766 would ban the use of microbeads in Michigan in products like toothpaste and cleaning supplies. This legislation is important because it goes beyond the Federal Microbead-Free Waters Act of 2015 by covering additional products. Eliminating microbeads protects our surface water, and more importantly, it safeguards our drinking water. If microbeads are not in our source waters, we do not need to pay extra for treatment to remove them from our drinking water. So next, I'll talk about Senate Bill 505, House Bill 4767 for the microplastics research strategy. High-quality research and monitoring are essential for protecting Michigan's water resources. These bills require EGLE to develop a comprehensive statewide research and monitoring plan for microplastics in the Great Lakes. This will allow us to evaluate ecological, health, and economic impacts of microplastics and provide the data needed to protect both our environment and public health. This is a great opportunity to quantify the risks. This type of occurrence data is fundamental to designing any effective control strategy. And it will also be important to establish health protective thresholds to effectively communicate study results to the public when they are generated. Finally, I want to talk about Senate Bill 504, House Bill 4768 generated. House Bill 4768, the bill mandating a drinking water study. This bill presents a groundbreaking opportunity to study microplastics in drinking water. Michigan would be at the forefront nationally in understanding whether and to what extent microplastics are entering our drinking water. One recommendation I have for this bill is that it must be explicit that sampling as part of the study needs to go past the water treatment plant. Tap water monitoring is essential, especially in communities with plastic water mains, plastic service lines, and plastic plumbing. Sources of microplastics in our drinking water after the water leaves the water treatment plant may include polyethylene, PVC, HDPE, and PEX pipes that are becoming more and more popular. So we need to know not only what is in our source water and what passes through our water treatment plants, but also what contaminants may increase once water travels through plastic pipes to residents' taps. Quantifying microplastics at each of these points is critical to understanding the potential health risks and the relative importance of the different sources of microplastics. So in closing, I strongly support Senate Bills 503, 504, and 505 and their companion House bills. Together, they represent an important step forward in protecting our Great Lakes, our communities, and our drinking water. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, colleagues? Thank you very much. Next, we have Terry Quimby, President and CEO of the Michigan Chemistry Council, and Marcus Branstad of the American Chemistry Council in person. Marcus Branstad of the American Chemistry Council in person. Thank you for coming to testify today. No, you have to push the button that's at the base, and the red light will shine bright if
It's a little
on.
button. All right. Thank you very much, and I understand that there is some time restraints, so I will be brief. But thank you very much, Madam Chair, for being able to testify in front of you and the committee. Thank you, committee members, for having me here. I'm Marcus, the American Chemistry Council, and our members who are committed to advancing recycling and sustainability solutions while protecting public health and the environment. We oppose Senate Bills 503, 4, and 5 in their current form. However, we are eager to work with you to make improvements that will better align with science and also practical implementation. These bills touch on very highly technical and evolving issues, and if enacted as written, they risk unintended consequences. Some regulatory confusion for sure, and costs that don't translate into environmental or health benefits. At the same time, much of this work is already underway at the national level through the US EPA, HHS, and federal legislation. Michigan should ensure its efforts are consistent with those broader initiatives rather than be duplicative. We respectfully urge you to bring industry academia and government experts into the discussion to refine these bills. We would welcome the opportunity to meet with the sponsors and provide technical insights and lessons learned from other states. I have a few comments on each individual bill, and then I'll pass the mic to my colleague here. In Senate Bill 505, we support the concept bill and the 5 strategy, but the bill is drafted too narrow and unrealistic. Limiting research to just academic institutions excludes industry experts who have advanced technical capabilities and experience with microplastic detection and quantification. The proposed timeline is very ambitious and may not match current scientific capabilities. California, for example, has struggled to implement similar requirements that are required under this bill. For water quality, but this bill sets mandates that are not supported by science today. Requiring a safe limit for microplastics by 2031 is premature. Standards should be tied to evidence of adverse health effects, not just picking a date 6 years down the road. Lessons from California, again, show the complexities and costs of statewide monitoring. Michigan should avoid repeating those challenges and instead build a framework that reflects current science and feasibility. In Senate Bill 503, we're most concerned with this bill. As written, its definitions are very broad and intentionally ban safe, beneficial, and innovative products. For example, soluble polymers that are used to deliver active ingredients or biodegradable materials could be swept into this ban. The scope appears to extend beyond personal care and into other categories like agriculture and coatings and even air care, ways that may not be truly be intended from the way that it was written. Again, the precise definition of plastic, I think, is very important here, and that ASTM definition would be beneficial. In closing, respectfully oppose these bills as currently written, but we look forward to bringing forward industry technical experts of our own to work with the authors of the bill as well as this committee to help craft policies that are science-based, achievable, and aligned also with national efforts. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, also with national efforts. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I appreciate the time to speak with you and the committee today.
Thank you. We'll go to you and then we'll open it up for questions after.
Carrie Quimby, the new president and CEO of the Michigan Chemistry Council. Thank you for hearing this testimony. On behalf of the Michigan Chemistry Council, I'm here to oppose Senate Bill 503 through 505 at this time and respectfully request the opportunity to work with the bill sponsors and members of this committee on this universal issue. Chemistry is one of Michigan's largest manufacturing sectors and directly impacts almost all manufactured goods. It makes modern living possible and is ever present in our daily lives. The Michigan Chemistry Council and members are committed to protecting public health and the environment while engaging in the business of chemistry. The Michigan Chemistry Council advocates for responsible environmental policies and programs that provide consistency and certainty for Michigan manufacturers, as well as regulatory policies based on sound science and risk-based principles, allowing for consistent implementation. The Michigan Chemistry Council requests and welcomes the opportunity to bring in industry experts to provide fact-based scientific input. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Questions, anyone? All right, thank you very much. Next, we have Art Hirsch from the Michigan Microplastics Coalition. The light should go on. Yes,
Here we go.
got it.
I see the button now. Okay, thank you. I would like to thank you, Committee Chair Senator Schenck, and bill sponsors, Senator Irwin and Senator Pohanke, and other members of the Senate Committee on Natural Resources and Agriculture for the opportunity to share my views and concerns about microplastics in the Michigan Great Lakes and inland surface waters. My name is Art Hirsch, and I'm an environmental engineer with an expertise in microplastics and water quality. I'm a co-founder of the Michigan Microplastics Coalition. The Michigan Microplastics Coalition fully supports the approval of Senate Bills 505, 504, and 503. Michigan Microplastic Coalition members and I have been giving presentations about microplastics to local communities, groups, schools, and professional organizations throughout the state of Michigan. It's been my experience that every presentation has resulted in creating a health and environmental concern among the audience and your constituents. The following are my main key points and concerns about microplastics and these bills. Microplastic materials are made up of over 13,000 chemicals that are made from endocrine disrupting chemicals and also carcinogenic chemicals that we ingest. Research in the Great Lakes has shown that microplastics represent a risk to public health and the Great Lakes environment. Microplastics are less than 5 millimeters in size and have entered our bodies via the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the food we eat. So this is an example, a visual of microplastics material that came off of my beach. And so it's basically what we're talking about. If you do not measure it, you cannot manage it. The state of Michigan has no formal microplastics monitoring programs for drinking water. We have no idea of how many microplastics we're ingesting through our drinking water systems. Research needs to be done by our state universities to identify microplastic sources, concentrations, distribution, and risk to the environment. Research and monitoring plans need to be created to develop microplastic management controls and mitigation strategies. Plastic reduction is the key towards reducing microplastic pollution problem. Recycling is not the answer. Plastics and microplastics represent a significant risk to our multi-billion-dollar tourism and recreational fishery. Great Lakes fish contain some of the highest concentrations of microplastics ever reported. The Great Lakes waters are held in trust by the state of Michigan for the benefit of the public under the public trust doctrine. The doctrine empowers citizens to hold the state of Michigan accountable for protecting our water resources now and for future generations. Please consider your constituents' concerns about the microplastics and approve these bills. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Hirsch. Next, we have Tim Minotis, Legislative Director of the Sierra Club of Michigan Chapter, and Samantha Pickering, Environmental and Public Health Policy Manager of the Michigan Environmental Council. Sierra Club of Michigan Chapter and Samantha Pickering, the Michigan Environmental Council.
Perfect. Thank you, Chairwoman Schenck and members of the committee. My name is Tim Minotis. I'm the Legislative and Political Director for the Michigan Sierra Club.
And good afternoon, Madam Chair. Thank you so much for having us. I'm Samantha Pickering, the Public and Environmental Health Policy Manager with Michigan Environmental Council. So I just wanted to touch base really quick. Everybody covered everything so thoroughly on the different types of microplastics. So there are primary microplastics, which are manufactured to be small, like microbeads and nurdles. And then secondary microplastics are what evolve over time. So from litter on the ground that breaks down into the smaller and smaller fragments that end up in our environment, as well as microfibers that come off in our clothing and our washing machines and end up out in the Great Lakes because we don't have proper filtering systems yet. So there's a lot of different types of ways it gets into the environment and gets into our bodies. Plastics have a lot of different chemicals and different properties to them that result in them having different densities. So some of them will sink down to the sediment in the lakes and freshwaters and marine environments. Some will float, some will be right at the surface. There's marine environments. Some will float, some will be right at the surface. So it's a very pervasive and them having different densities. So some of them will sink down to the sediment in the lakes and freshwaters and marine environments. Some will float, some will be right at the surface. So it's a very pervasive so as a prevent future plastics pollution and begin mitigation efforts on the issue that will help safeguard public health. Ultimately, support the prevention and look at the environmental risks through informed policy and proactive public health protections. They serve as a critical first step to future mitigation and intervention efforts. And in addition to research, proactive bans on certain types of microplastics, like the microbeads, manufactured to be small, can prevent harm. And since 2015, when the federal microbeads ban went into place, a lot more manufacturers are putting microbeads in additional products that are not covered by that ban. So this, what we have in front of us today, is essentially an expansion of that to help mitigate some of those pollutants coming into our environment in the future and save us costs in the long run. And, you know, we've talked about how persistent they are in our body and in the environment. One thing I wanted to note of particular concern is that, you know, we saw plastics become a part of our daily lives around the 1950s. And research started many decades after that, and we have children today being born with microplastics in their bodies because it's found in the placenta of women, the blood and urine of pregnant persons, as well as in breast milk. So not only are they being exposed in vitro, but once they're out and if they're breastfeeding, they're continuously exposed, and we don't yet know what some of those long-term health impacts are. So being able to get ahead of this beforehand and work towards interventions and ways to, you know, prevent folks from having chronic diseases like cardiovascular disease. We know it's an endocrine disrupting chemical that can lead to certain types of cancer. So just being as proactive as possible and learning more about the current state of this in the Great Lakes is very critical.
And I'll talk a little bit about kind of the economic and public support around microplastics. As we all know, Michigan has more freshwater shoreline than any other state, and our economy depends on clean water. Recreation on the Great Lakes, including our world-renowned boating, hunting, and fishing opportunities, generate more than $52 billion annually for the region. Tourism in Michigan supports 50,000 jobs and composes approximately 60% of all economic activity derived from the Great Lakes, all of which can be undermined by unchecked pollution, including plastic pollution. Research has consistently shown that investing in clean water pays off. The Great Lakes Restoration Initiative recently found that for every $1 spent on Great Lakes research, that generates more than $3 in economic returns. Unless action is taken, microplastics are expected to significantly increase. Studies are showing if we don't do anything now, they are set to double by 2040. And this will lead to increased impacts and costs, especially on our local communities. States are starting to take action now, but Michigan must respond to this challenge. We are surrounded by 4 or 5 of the Great Lakes. We have over 11,000 lakes, streams. We are the Great Lakes. We are the water state. And it's up to us to rise to this challenge and lead. Furthermore, recent surveys show that 80% of Americans are concerned about microplastics in our food and water. This concern cuts across age, income, political affiliation, ethnicity, reflecting a broad consensus on the importance of clean water. A 2024 IJC Commission poll found that near unanimous support for protecting the Great Lakes, with more than 9 in 10 residents calling both the protection and for government investment in our Great Lakes as being important. The growing visibility of plastic pollution combined with the rising awareness of its health risks, including microplastics found in human bodies, has made addressing this issue a widely shared priority. And so in closing, we are defined by our water. They are the heart of our way of life and identity here. Studies and anglers have reported pulling fish from the Great Lakes with bellies full of plastic fragments. Hunters and birders have noticed plastic pellets in the stomachs of our waterfowl. And even when we can't see them, microplastics in the water and they are in our air. So this is not a distant or abstract threat. It's here, it's in our environment, and it's in our bodies. So every piece of plastic we can prevent today is one less fragment in our fish's stomach, one less fragment in our drinking water, protecting our kids, and acting now ensures that future generations can inherit clean water and clean air to breathe and recreate in. So right now, Michigan does not have that complete picture. We've heard that. This is why these bills are critically important. This will help us find where microplastics are coming from, how much is out there, and the full risk to people and wildlife. And these bills will allow us to gather that information and help ultimately drive us to make the policy decisions that are needed for our state to move forward. And so we ask for your support for these bills, and we look forward to working with you all and the legislature as a whole in taking this critical step.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you. Next, we have Carrie LeSueur from Flow Water Advocates. And Carrie's in person. Hi. Thank you for being here today. There's just a little round button down at the base that you push.
Thank you, Chair Schenk and the committee for the opportunity to testify, obviously for the first time in front of the Senate committee. Speaking on behalf of Flow Water Advocates, we are a Great Lakes Law and Policy Center in Traverse City, dedicated to ensuring the waters of the Great Lakes Basin. Speaking on behalf of Flow Water Advocates, we are a Great Lakes Law and Policy Center in Traverse Lakes Basin are protected as a commons and a public trust for all people now and for future generations. Our mission is rooted in the idea that water is a shared resource that must be protected from exploitation and degradation. I'm here to testify in support of Senate Bills 503, 504, and 505, legislation that one of the most urgent and pervasive pollution threats of our time. The microplastic found everywhere in the Great Lakes, inland rivers and lakes, soils, the air we breathe, and increasingly in our own bodies. They originate both from primary sources like microbeads and synthetic fibers, and secondary sources like the breakdown of larger plastic debris. Once released, they persist for generations. The harms are significant. Microplastics enter food chains, disrupt ecosystems, and carry toxic chemicals that accumulate as they move up the web of life. They have been detected in human blood, lungs, and even placental tissue. Studies link exposure to inflammation, cardiovascular disease, and developmental harm in fetuses. Beyond ecological and health impacts, the economic burden of plastic pollution is staggering, costing industries like fisheries and tourism billions of dollars, while communities bear the expense of cleanup and public health costs. This legislation provides solutions, and I thank the sponsors for proposing it. By requiring the state to develop a comprehensive microplastics research and monitoring plan, Michigan would become a national leader in tackling this problem at its source. The bills call for EGLE to work with leading universities to identify the sources and pathways of microplastics, establish baseline conditions in our drinking water, and implement ongoing monitoring. The legislation also strengthens accountability by prohibiting the use of plastic microbeads and requiring annual public reporting. This approach recognizes two critical needs: addressing microplastics as an immediate and harmful pollutant in our drinking water and reducing the upstream sources of plastic pollution over time. By grounding solutions in science, collaboration, and transparency, this legislation ensures that Michigan can safeguard both the Great Lakes and the health of their people. At Flow, we believe that protecting water is both a moral responsibility and an economic necessity. The Great Lakes are the world's greatest freshwater system, our defining natural heritage and irreplaceable public trust. Senate Bills 503, 504, and 505 represent a responsible, proactive step toward protecting that trust from the growing threat of plastic pollution. For these reasons, I urge the committee to advance this bill package. Thank you for your time and for your commitment to protecting Michigan's waters.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, will the clerk please read the testimony cards?
Madam Chair, the following cards were submitted in support of the bill. Jane Adams and Linda Berger, all representing Nipissing Five Rivers Group of Michigan Sierra Club. Heather Sistro, Michigan Microplastics Coalition. Vera Hernandez, Michigan Microplastic Coalition. David Lossing, Huron River Watershed Council. Raquel Newell, City of Detroit, Office of Sustainability. Katie Morelli, Breeze Free Detroit. Andrea Dansham, Alliance for the Great Lakes. Caroline Sadenreger, Flow Water Advocates. Tamara Rankowski, representing herself. Brad Swanson, representing himself. Mariah Walton, City of Ann Arbor. Katie Olson, representing herself. Logan Vorse, Michigan League of Conservation Voters. Melissa Sargent, Ecology Center. Martha Cavazos Consulting, and Hope McMillan Brand, Flow Water Advocates. Madam Chair, the following cards were submitted in opposition to the bill package. Jeff Stuttenberg was Dow, Josh Scramlin, Michigan Farm Bureau, Tim Lenholz, NFIB, Mike Alimo, My Chamber, Mike Witkowski, Michigan Manufacturers Association. That completes the cards, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I need a motion to excuse absent members. So moved by Senator Cherry. Without objection, Senator Victory, Polhanky,
Victory.
Just Senator Victory is excused from today's meeting. There being no further business, the Senate Committee on Natural Resources and Agriculture is now adjourned. Thank you, everyone.